My name is Maya, and welcome to my channel, Cranley Place, where I'm posting content on scarf style, knot tutorials, and more. Be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe to be notified of new videos, which I'm publishing weekly. In my last episode, I talked about some of the higher profile Grail Hermes scarves. So in this video, I'd like to examine some of the past season's designs that are a little more under the radar, but equally Grail worthy in my mind. As I mentioned before, what's considered a Grail may vary from person to person, and that's completely fine. Beauty, as they say, is indeed in the eye of the beholder. So next I'll cover a few designs from the past seasons that I admire, and certainly these are all collectible in my mind and somewhat easier to find pre-loved at a decent price. My caveat, of course, is that these are all to my taste, which you may find rubbish, and in which case you should probably just stop watching now. But my other disclaimer is that what I consider reasonable may be very different to you, so that's that. Anyways, if you've been watching my channel, you may already know that I tend to gravitate towards asymmetrical designs. That wasn't always the case, especially when I started collecting, but it's a clear preference that I've had in more recent years. I also usually look for a variety of colors within the design and, where possible, contrast hems. Full disclosure, I am a huge Faivre fan, and she certainly has her loyal followers. From what I can tell, she has been with the house since the late 1970s. Over the years, she's done dozens of designs for Hermes, which I do see pop up regularly in the secondary market. Again, beware of counterfeits if you're shopping pre-owned. Be sure to check out my tutorial on spotting the fakes if you haven't already. But today, I'll talk about two designs in particular and why I think they're worth considering as an Hermes scarf collector. Voyages en Étoffes, or basically travel in fabrics, is the first one I'll mention. If you saw my last episode about some of the more highly sought after Hermes grails, you may remember that I'm a fan of the Japanese aesthetic and many of their textiles. At a first glance, these remind me of kimonos, although in reality, these robes represent ways of dress from multiple cultures: batiks, ikats, indigos, embroideries, weaves, prints, and more, in a variety of fabrics, including silk, linen, hemp, cotton, etc. Visually, I've always loved the variety of this design, and you can usually find it in the secondary market in multiple colorways. I'm not sure which came first, but I do know that it has been issued in both a 90 by 90 silk twill format and as a 140 cashmere GM. I've also seen this in Plissés, and we'll talk a bit more in general about collecting that format in a bit. Another gorgeous Faivre design that I see popping up in the pre-loved market is this one, issued in 2015 and representing the beautiful objet d'art owned by Queen Zénobie, who ruled Palmyre along the Silk Road in the mid to late 3rd century. Before being conquered by Rome, Palmyre was a key cultural center where textiles, jewelry, sculptures, and more from major nations would converge. I believe this was also issued in both a 90 by 90 silk twill format and as a 140 cashmere GM. If you look closely at this stunning design, you'll see all the intricate details and colors, which make for a lot of styling variety. And while it does not have a contrast rolled hem, which I love, it does have a contrast border, at least in some of the colorways, which also adds visual interest when wearing this scarf. I believe this scarf, Jardin Créole, was issued in 1994, which, wow, I just realized was almost 30 years ago. But anyways, this design stars a Caribbean coconut, showcasing not only the fruit itself, but two of its byproducts, a carved dry coconut shell and a hand-woven palm made from its fronds. You can see the intricate details, which make for a gorgeously asymmetrical design. If you like symmetry, this may not be for you, but I like these types of designs for their variety. Based on the way you fold the scarf, a design like this can yield some very different looks. As far as I can tell, this was only ever issued as a 90 by 90 silk twill as well as a plissé. I regularly see both on the secondary market in some interesting colorways and at some fairly reasonable prices. As I've mentioned before, natural history enthusiast Alice Shirley is one of those Hermès artists whose scarves just fly off the shelves when they're issued, which sort of makes it surprising that this one, Esprit de la Fôret, comes up regularly in the pre-loved market. It's a beautiful design close-up of a butterfly wing, inspired by the poetry of Emily Dickinson. My cocoon tightens, colors tease, I'm feeling for the air. A dim capacity for wings degrades the dress I wear. I believe this has only been issued as a 90 by 90, and yes, has been on Hermes.com as recently as last year. But if you're an Alice Shirley fan and haven't been able to collect other designs, this one is a nice option. Like the other scarves I've pointed out here, you can see the asymmetry of the design, and as a bonus, it has contrast hems. I love that. This scarf is by Ardmore Artists, a collective of artisans from the KwaZulu-Natal province of South Africa, founded in 1985 to promote the style and traditional imagery of their region. The design features a leopard at the heart of a baobab flower. In Zulu culture, the leopard incarnates the noble status of kings, while the baobab flower represents power and grace. The flowers of this immense tree open only at dusk, which is when the leopard ventures out in search of its prey. I've seen this as both a 90 by 90 silk twill and a 45 by 45 gavroche, which again provides some alternative formats if you like the design and aren't necessarily after a particular size. Nathalie Vialars is an artist who worked with the house for nearly a decade during the early aughts. This scarf, L'Art de Temari, celebrates a craft technique dating back to the 8th century, at a time when Japan imported a Chinese ball game called Temari. What you see on the scarf is what evolved into the current form of the Temari, which is the art of embroidering on the surface of the ball, originally with silk threads. Te means hand in Japanese, while mari means ball. These were originally accessible only to the upper Japanese classes who could afford the materials, but over time became more widespread. Generally, the Temari uses geometric patterns, and embroidering them differed from one region to another, making the number of possible designs almost infinite. It is the intricacy of both pattern and color that I find appealing about this scarf, which again presents multiple styling possibilities depending on how you fold and tie this scarf. This was also issued in both 90 by 90 silk twill and 140 cashmere GM formats, which again gives you some options if you like this design and aren't tied to a particular size. I mentioned plissés a bit earlier and wanted to share my thoughts in general on collecting these from the secondary market. I do have a handful of scarves in this format, which was offered mainly in the 1990s and eventually discontinued. If you're not familiar with the plissés, they're basically 90 by 90 centimeter silk twill scarves, which were tightly pleated, and these can be tied in some wonderfully organic looking knots. All of mine were bought new, and I do love them, but here's why I don't collect any of these, which do appear regularly on the secondary market. First and foremost is the issue of cleaning. Obviously, if you get something pre-loved, you want to clean it before wearing. And if you have this type of scarf dry cleaned, it will lose its pleats. Same thing if you hand wash it. I learned both these lessons from experience. And anyways, the pleats tend to loosen up over time. Now, Hermes will, for a fee, send your scarf back to France to have it repleated. It's been a while since I've had this done, but The last time I did it, I think it was maybe $100 and it took a few months, maybe 6 months, to get the scarf back. That's certainly an option if you want to get one of these from the secondary market, but for me, I don't bother. So there you have it, a bit about some Hermès scarf designs that are more under the radar, but equally grail-worthy in my mind. As always, do be extra careful when shopping for Hermès scarves in the secondary market, but have fun seeing what's out there. In future episodes, I'll share other scarf reviews, knot tutorials, and more, so be sure to hit that subscribe button to be notified of new videos. Thanks again for joining me today. Until next time.